Welcome to Boundaries and Beyond, the podcast that empowers you to set boundaries and nurture self-care, as well as have happier, healthier relationships. I'm Jennifer, your co-host.
And I'm Dr. Pokerel, your other co-host. And joining us is Trinity, the real junkyard dog.
Say hello.
And sometimes Toby doesn't want to be left out, so
Yeah.
he's spread out on the front of us.
Yes. I hear the term boundaries thrown around a lot these days, but what does that term actually mean? We're here to clear all that up.
In every episode, we'll break it all down for you, share practical tips for building better boundaries so you can have healthier, happier, more balanced lives. And yes, we are that good.
Oh my goodness. Today's topic is managing chaos in the relationship.
That sounds really bad.
It can get really bad.
Okay.
And
Before you start, we got to get the housekeeping issue. What is Trinity wearing?
Trinity is wearing a little sweater dress, and a pretty in plaid skirt. She's nice and warm today on this winter January day.
It's winter, but here in Texas today it feels like spring.
Actually, it's February. Let me correct that.
Well, you said winter. Oh, you did say January.
Honey, this isn't a trick question, but do you believe in soulmates?
Whenever anybody starts with, it's not a trick question, I'm looking for the trick. It's like when you tell people don't think about monkeys. That's the first thing that pops into my mind.
Yes. But
So do I believe in soulmate? And that's a complicated question because I do believe in soulmates, but not in the same way that most people think of soulmates. It's not so much that you're meant to be together as most people think of it. They have a very romantic notion of soulmate. What I think of soulmates is, so there's the definition of love that's used by Scott Peck, author of The Road Less Traveled.
The road less traveled.
The Road Less Traveled.
Road less traveled.
What did I say?
Road less traveled.
I don't have an accent.
Yes, you do.
The Road Less Traveled.
Okay,
Is
that's
that
better.
okay?
Yes, that's better.
So he uses the definition of love as the act of promoting someone's spiritual growth. So in order to promote somebody's spiritual growth, that may be very unpleasant. It may be a lot of work because we're not going to talk about spirituality today, but when you think of love in those terms, then your soulmate is the one that's going to have the most effect on your growth, rather than who you're just meant to be. That means you got to correct, or what is described in 12 steps is remove remove character defects. And you're asking God to remove your character defects. And that can be very painful. Imagine one character defect is arrogance, and you have to become humble to get rid of the arrogance and the narcissism. So that's painful. That can be very, very painful to experience that humility.
Are you saying we all have a little narcissism in us?
Yes.
Oh,
absolutely.
Interesting.
Going back to the soulmate, that means that the person you're meant to be with is the one that's going to bring the most spiritual growth for you. And we fit like a lock and key. This is a lock and key model. So one partner has this shape, one partner has this shape, and they're meant to fit this way so that they can both repair each other's process. And there's a theory behind this of expansiveness, that the reason we look for a mate is because they're going to allow us to expand our humanity, grow. So that person that's going to provide you with the most growth is who is meant to be with you. Okay, and that's the soulmate that I believe in. Is going to bring you closer to God. Not that it's meant to be and you're going to be in love forever. That's not what, no. In fact, the person that's going to bring you closer to God may be the person that can bring you the most pain in your life.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's beautiful, honey.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I believe in a hybrid of, yes, you have flaws, but it was written before you were born, who you would be with and who is going to be that person to best help you find those painful spots and itch and scratch and take care of those wounds. That's my view, but
For listeners,
Mhm.
so I'm more on the science,
Yes.
logic, clinical aspect,
And-
and you're more of an artist.
Yes.
So I'm the left brain, you're the right brain, so to speak,
Yeah.
in colloquial terms of
Mm.
colloquial neuroscience. That, and okay, so that's fine. I don't necessarily disagree with that, with your point of view, because I think we're saying what you're saying is something very similar to
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
It's just that you believe that it's predetermined.
Yes. Yeah. I do.
And I don't necessarily believe that, but that's
I don't believe
okay.
in predeterminism
Oh, but it's written.
fully, but
Okay,
you can change the writing. You can erase the writing.
I see. Okay. All right. So predeterminism.
What happens? What do you do when that lock and key is more like
It's not fitting.
it's not fitting? What's the magic? What's the magic potion?
The magic potion is that both partners need to be committed to making that lock and key.
Hmm.
And that's part of the growth.
But what
So
if one
that's a
isn't?
problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a problem because it takes two to tango. And as we say,
Mhm.
we say in recovery circles, sweep, you got to keep clean your side of the street.
Mhm.
You cannot be focused on the other person's side of the street because you can only clean your side.
Mhm.
So then when you're both cleaning each keep cleaning your side of the street, then the street becomes immaculate, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we have to continue to not only maintain our side of the street, but we have to work in tandem. And when we work in tandem, we can accomplish much more than when one partner is not working in the process of the relationship.
Mhm.
And there's a description of it is when one partner goes offline, the other one has to stay online regardless of what the other partner does, but it
Mhm.
becomes more difficult to stay online
And so what do
or
you
in
do?
line.
What do you do to keep your side? Let's say you've got a partner that is raging or going out drinking or acting out in some other way. How do you set boundaries and keep your side of the street clean without meddling in their business? And which we tend to do a lot as the partner that's not acting out is we want to fix them. We want to make them better. We want to do something or say something to influence them or change their mind or get through to them. What do we do?
Yeah, that's a real tough one
Hmm.
because one of the things about, for example, I'll just use myself as an example. Growing up, I was a fixer and a peacemaker,
Hmm.
and I wanted to fix I would want to fix the other person, and that I have absolutely no power over that.
Hmm.
I can delude myself into it, but I cannot fix the other person no matter what I do. And what we understand is when you're dealing with a person that doesn't want to be fixed, they're going to sabotage even themselves
Hmm.
to the point that they just don't want to be fixed.
Yeah.
Especially those that have a history of being rebellious or got scapegoated. They they want to clash with you and just do the opposite just because,
Hmm.
right? So those are very difficult. So the only way anybody decides to turn around is when they're fully committed
Hmm.
to bettering themselves of recovery. And this is across pretty much all disciplines of psychology.
Hmm.
The ones that are committed are the ones that are able to change.
Hmm.
Um, and they have to be, unfortunately, in enough pain to do that.
And so you're saying we can't manipulate them into that.
No,
Okay.
we
All right.
cannot manipulate. We can only focus on ourselves. Now, the good news is that once you start or I start setting boundaries, then the other person notices.
Hmm.
So a couple of things happen. Number one is they're going to start respecting you. The other person's going to respect us more. I keep using the wrong I got to stick to not using you and me here. The person that is in chaos is going to start noticing that the other person is not participating in the chaos. And I think that's where we're headed.
Mm-hmm.
And second, they're going to feel abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a situation where they want to get back into the relationship. So Pia Melody in her love addiction model describes the love addiction dance.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the codependent here and you have the avoidant.
Mm-hmm.
And the avoidant keeps pulling away and the codependent keeps trying to pull him into the relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the avoidant is thriving on that
Mm-hmm.
pull.
Mhm.
So then the codependent finally says, you know what, this is not worth it. I had enough. And they turn around and they start focusing on themselves or going in a different direction. This person all of a sudden is like freaking out.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, nobody's chasing me. Nobody's following me. I'm all by myself. No, please come back. So all of a sudden the tables turn. And then this one, in their delusion, the codependent thinks, oh, finally. They turn back around. They kiss and make up.
Mm-hmm.
They have a honeymoon period,
Mhm.
anywhere between a few weeks to a few hours.
Mhm.
They may even get intimate. If this is a couple, they may be intimate temporarily. And then guess what? The dance starts again. And then they go back and forth.
That's exhausting.
And it's draining.
Yeah.
But that's why we say that the person that doesn't want to participate in the chaos, the one that's more sensible, is just going to have to get healthy
Mm-hmm.
and focus on setting boundaries. So finally, this person, we go back to the dance, this person starts getting healthy. And instead of going in this direction, this person just starts going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And this person, either two things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
One of two things are going to happen. Either they're going to follow and start getting better because it's,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe I do need to do this. Maybe this is a good thing. Or this is the scary part for the codependent, is they may just
Mm-hmm.
go on and move on somewhere else.
So, in a lot of circles where we've counseled other couples, convincing them to get out of the dance is extremely hard. Doesn't mean that people won't do it, but the ones that do it early tend to salvage their relationships.
Often we do see that. And just going back, we as the advisors to other couples, we don't want to get caught up in our own codependent dance with the couple.
Yeah.
So we can't convince them. We can only provide the information and let them take it in.
Yeah.
And provide advice. The thing is that often the hard part that you're talking about is that they're always focused on, okay, but how do I fix it?
Yeah. How do I fix him?
How do I
or
fix
her?
him? But it's mostly how do I fix him? That's usually then how do I fix him?
Yeah.
And
why trying to get inside of his head and psychoanalyze. He was so nice yesterday, and now today he's mean and saying horrible things, and I just don't understand. It doesn't make sense. You've got to get out of that mindset of trying to psychoanalyze them.
right, because and most of this behavior is very predictable.
Yeah.
We see what's happening and we can tell them this is the pattern that you're following. But unfortunately, while they're in the middle of the pattern, they don't quite see it.
Yeah.
And so they keep asking, what is the pattern that you're seeing, and explain it to me.
Mm-hmm.
We try to explain it to them, but then they don't receive it. So what we have to do, what we've done, is that we try to just have them just redirect their focus back to themselves, back to setting their own boundaries properly. So for example, let's use an example that we hear commonly is he's out drinking again, right, with his buddies, and he's not coming home. He comes home at 7 a.m, and it doesn't look exactly like a healthy person. The children are asking, why is dad acting this way? So that probably one of the best things is to say, do not tolerate that behavior. Now, you can't tell him to stop, but you don't have to put up with it either.
So what do? What is one thing, like just one thing that you would say you need to do first?
It does depend. So you got to set a clear boundary about interaction. Cannot interact with for example, the children cannot interact with the children when they're in that, and cannot come home that way.
Mhm.
Now, if it's possible, take the keys, lock the door.
Mhm.
That's one way. That's a physical boundary,
Yeah.
right? You lock the doors. He can't come in unless he's sober
Mhm.
and is behaving properly,
Mhm.
right? Cannot come home drunk.
Yeah.
Obviously, if there's some physical abuse, then that needs to be reported. That should not be tolerated at all.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Mhm.
So another option, if it's possible, to leave the house. Okay, go to your parents, go to his parents, go to your sister. If that's not, now that can be a problem if there's no supportive family members around.
Yeah.
But they need to have a place that they can go to stay away, and that creates that physical boundary as well.
Mhm.
So that in recovery, when we're in early recovery, we say to the men that are trying to get sober,
Mhm.
is you need that time to think about what you're doing,
Mhm.
think about what you've done,
Mhm.
and think about what's important to you.
And that's the reason for that separation there. And we're not talking about separation as in
Yeah, we're not
divorce
talking
or
about divorce or anything
the
like that.
legal
We're
term,
talking about a physical separation.
physically, not the legal term. So it's just getting out, getting away. If it's summertime, take the kid and go to a VRBO on the lake and just try to divert your attention to where you're not focusing on that, is my advice.
And often, I think that when they hear that, they cannot get past the question of divorce or separate. I'm not ready to get out of the relationship. Then that's not what we're talking about.
No.
This is like shutting the door to the bathroom and then just getting privacy.
Yeah.
This is just a little bit, we're extending this boundary a little bit more and we're making
And
it clearer.
if leaving physically isn't a possibility, you can just shut the door, literally.
Right.
Just shut the door. If he's raging or she's raging, doing something, and they refuse to get out of the house and you have no place else to go, just shut the door. That's a separation. It's a boundary, or it's more like a wall because you need your protection.
And by the way, in this case, a wall would be a healthy thing
Yeah.
because you're setting a clear, this is a wall. So the difference between a boundary and a wall is that a boundary is dynamic.
Mhm.
And a wall is just like pretty much closing a door, putting up a brick wall so that people can't get through.
Mhm.
And that's the idea. In this case, when somebody is really chaotic, you may need a wall.
Yeah.
So we've seen some movies where the wife packs their bags and throws them out into the front yard.
Yeah.
That actually,
That's the
it's a
thing.
little dramatic for a movie, but that's the idea.
Yeah.
Or they can move into the guest house if there's a guest house, or they can move into the guest room.
Or go get a room at Motel 8 tell them to stay there the weekend.
Something to that effect.
Yeah.
But you need your space. You need to be clear-headed and not be caught up in the chaos.
Mhm.
So what's happening is you're in the middle of a hurricane, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to get into the eye of the hurricane where everything's calm.
Mhm.
But if you're on the edges, everything's twirling, and that's what you're trying to
And
resolve.
you can't see the pattern that you're in. Once you get out of the hurricane, you can see the pattern, but it's really hard to see it.
Right. You got to get above it, get it from above. But while you're in the middle of it,
Yeah.
and you don't know, even if when you're on the eye of the hurricane, you don't know if the hurricane's shifting directions.
Yeah.
You can't stay in there forever. It's going to come back.
Yeah.
So you can keep trying to find that eye of the, we made this analogy of the hurricane here on the fly, right?
Mhm.
So I like that analogy is that we keep trying to get to the eye of the storm,
Mhm.
and then we try to just move with the eye of the storm, but eventually it's going to come back and get you.
Yeah.
And then it's got to be exhausting just to stay in that eye.
Yeah, it is.
You want to get out of this stupid hurricane.
Yeah. You want the hurricane to calm down, become a
Well, you
tropical.
want it gone. You can't. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's another good analogy is that you can't do anything about a hurricane.
Yeah.
You can't fix a hurricane. You
No.
can't make it go away. You got to wait for it to calm
Yeah. On its
itself
own. Yeah.
on its own.
Yeah. One of the things that I've dealt with a lot in counseling the partner is dealing with the intrusive thoughts and the heartache of what they're going through, because that's often what pulls them back in because they can't stand it. They can't handle it long enough. So they go right back into the hurricane. Do you have any recommendations for that?
So the recommendation I would say is, number one, we got to shift the focus back to themselves, but the pain is very, very strong.
Yeah.
And think about it, it's a very primal type of pain, like the pain we experience as children if we're abandoned.
Yeah.
Because for a child, for a baby, literally being abandoned is life threatening. So that's the kind of pain level that we're experiencing as adults, and it's blinding. So one of the things that we do is try to shift the focus back to themselves and find support before the next episode.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be, what we're dealing with here is drama. And unfortunately, a lot of us, when we're in that hurricane, we're confusing the drama or the intensity. We're confusing the intensity for intimacy. Intensity is not intimacy.
Yeah.
So sometimes those intense feelings that we have, like when we fall in love, and that's what we keep chasing, that's not intimacy. That's very dysfunctional.
Yeah.
So find support before the next episode. So that means, and by the way, you don't really, you got to be careful when you use family members as support, but you do need that, like parents, siblings, friends, whatever. But you need people that are going through this as well as you.
And you don't want to use your friends and family members as your therapist.
Correct.
That's super
That's why you have to be
like
careful.
you're not unloading and airing all your dirty laundry out to them.
'Cause that's a mistake a lot of people made. They go, for example, they go to their in-laws and they tell them all the horrible things about their spouse.
Yeah.
And that actually, that'll make things worse over time.
Yeah.
So
it may feel good at the moment, but over time, years down the road, in their mind, he's still that deadbeat, you know?
Right. The support includes a counselor, a good counselor, and your own counselor.
Yeah.
If you cannot afford a counselor, which that's something that we encounter a lot, is there are free supports, and that's the 12-step programs. Those are completely free. And the one we participated in is Recovering Couples Anonymous. And you're dealing with other couples that are either going through it or have gone through it. So you get a lot of experience here. And this is decades of experience that is being, and I want to say wisdom that is being passed down to you, but you have to be able to receive it.
Yeah. What if their spouse isn't willing to join?
You can still go as one member of a couple. Some RCA groups, Recovering Couples Anonymous, will accept one member of a partnership.
And what if there's not an
or a
RC?
coupleship, as they call it. But don't. And by the way, don't be afraid. Those of you who are Christian or religious, don't be afraid when you hear these terms. These are just meant to attract more people. When you say coupleship, people that are not married can come to these. Like they're engaged and they're struggling and they want to find out if this marriage is going to work. So this is a good time to do that. So don't be scared when you hear those terms. I would encourage people to just be open, have an open mind about it. Because everybody wants to work on the relationship.
Well, what are some other groups? A lot of times somebody will try one and they don't like it.
Yeah.
So you've got to try more. What other types can they try?
So it's not only the type of group, like there's Codependents Anonymous, there's Love Addicts Anonymous, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, Adult Children of Alcoholics. All these groups, Overeaters Anonymous, another one. Narcotics Anonymous, you can work on all these things in these groups. You just got to find a sponsor and then some recovery partners. And we have we say a circle of 5 people that you need to have. And this can be like parents, siblings, counselor, recovery partners, and a sponsor. But if you go to one Codependents Anonymous, for example, and you don't like that group, go to a different Codependents Anonymous. And you can also do them online nowadays. Since the pandemic, these things can be done online. Ideally, you really want to do it face-to-face, but you can still do online meetings as well. And they're still helpful. There is research showing that is helpful to process all this information. And you can also have a sponsor. My sponsor was remote. He was in Missouri. I never actually met him face-to-face.
when people are traveling and they're trying to stay within the idea is to set a routine of going like once a week. And for people newly starting, they have a saying of 90
minutes in 90 days?
Yeah, not
Okay.
90.
No, 90 meetings. Sorry,
Yeah.
90 meetings in 90 days.
Yeah. And so to keep that up and to keep up a lifetime practice, people will supplement when they're away. They'll go to an online meeting.
Or to a local meeting,
Yeah.
wherever town you're visiting in, because everybody's welcome to
And
those
you can
things.
do them at any time zone too. So really, you're up at 10 o'clock at night, you can find one.
So your point is there's no excuse for not finding a
Yeah.
meeting that works for
And
you.
you can do it in your PJs. There, you don't have to meet on like a Zoom
Yeah.
call.
And okay, so I feel like we went on a tangent. What were we?
Okay, so we were dealing with intrusive thoughts. So you're saying that 12 steps are great and having that support of.
It doesn't have to be a 12-step. It can be a church group.
Mhm.
You can talk to a pastor or a priest. There's a lot of resources. I think that a lot of times when we're in the middle of that eye or in that hurricane, we don't see the available resources we have.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons we started this podcast is to provide some of this information to people so that they know where to seek help and how to seek help. Once you start finding other people that are going through this,
Mhm.
it gets a lot easier because you're always there for each other. Or shouldn't say always, but you're often there for each other.
So I know that you had some mechanisms for dealing with intrusive thoughts, and so did I. What were some of your little tricks that, let's say it's 3 in the morning, you can't go to sleep, and you feel funny about calling a sponsor or a friend. What would you do?
Okay. So there, I do think in these situations, having a counselor that works with cognitive behavioral issues can help out. Because this is the intrusive thoughts is one of the things that can be treated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the one that is most commonly known is the rubber band method.
Yes, that was.
Okay, so you put in a rubber band,
Mhm.
and then when you start having intrusive thoughts, you snap it. Now, it's not particularly painful, but it should sting.
Mhm.
That sting sends signals to your brain to stop and change the direction or attention.
Mhm.
And then you have to have some affirmations following that.
Mhm.
Normally, I used a prayer that I had that I was asking God to just restore my sanity
Mhm.
to that something to that effect.
Was that the serenity prayer?
I didn't do the serenity prayer because it's
Mhm.
too long
Okay.
at moment,
I did it.
but some people do,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Serenity prayer grant me the serenity
To
to
accept the things that I cannot change. That's super huge for us.
the courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. So that's certainly one way to do it. You snap and then you change it with an affirmation. And normally they recommend that you do it for at least 90 days, minimum of 90 days,
Mhm.
or until you start seeing a change in your thought pattern. The other is just to start doing something different.
Mhm.
But the important thing is that you're not going back to your other behavior. Now, some people will do something else that's dysfunctional. They'll go smoke, they'll eat, that kind of stuff. And it might work temporarily, but that's not a long term solution.
Yeah.
You
There are
want to focus on the healthy behaviors.
there are other things. I had a biofeedback machine that aligned my heart rate with my oxygen level as I was breathing it in. That was super helpful when I would have little panic attacks or just really intrusive thoughts. And that was so long ago. I'm sure that's antiquated.
You don't know it isn't
Well,
actually.
actually, that I did look this up on Amazon, and there's a lot of devices these days out
I
there.
was going to say there are probably more, but it's forcing you to take deep breaths.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing.
Yeah.
So, in essence, when somebody's anxious, they tell you to slow down your breathing, take deep breaths. Unfortunately, sometimes if you just say take deep breaths, somebody who's anxious is going to breathe fast, deeper.
Yeah, that's
They're going to
not
go
good.
from,
Yeah,
and
which
it's
is
like,
worse.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
We got to slow it down. We
Yeah.
got to take deep, slow breaths, changing your focus to the device.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're breathing in deep and slow out. And then that tends to calm you down.
Mm.
So, do you remember how long it took for that for you to see some changes?
Well, it took some practice first because I'd never had done any sort of breathing exercises. So I didn't know how to breathe, for one thing. And so it took but then I get some blips that I'd say, oh, you did it right. And I'm like, okay, how'd I do it that time? It's just like riding a bike. At first you're wobbly and you can't keep straight. And then suddenly you're just smooth sailing. And actually, I became really good at it and decided to then go on to meditation because it just seemed like a natural switch over to meditation. And that's another tool that you want a whole bag of tricks, right? Because one day you can't do that for what you forgot your little device. And so what can you do? If you have an iPad, you can look up different yogic breathing techniques. And let me tell you, that will put you to sleep. Learning things like ocean breath or box breathing is really relaxing. And then you can do things like yin yoga or yoga nidra. Some of the more the strength yoga is probably not as helpful, although it's good. Any kind of working out is going to be good for any kind of healthy practice that you can add to your regimen is going to it's going to help those intrusive thoughts.
So you mentioned, so another good one is doing something called displacement, which is what you're talking about with the meditation. Now, what I found is that men are not very open to meditation. Women seem to be a little bit more open to that, to doing yoga and all that. Men,
I am seeing more men in yoga classes.
Yeah,
I get it.
It's still a barrier for men.
Yeah.
And that what I recommend or what I discuss with men is that some kind of exercise, bag work, hitting a heavy bag, getting a couple of bag gloves and hitting a heavy bag is very cathartic. So you release a lot of energy. And nowadays, a lot of people are doing jujitsu because it requires a lot of concentration. Jujitsu is like playing chess on the mat. It's a physical game of chess. And that requires your mind to switch. No, then if you do jujitsu regularly, it actually does help. I'm not saying women can't do this either, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just that this is something that will appeal to men a little bit more.
Running.
Running, especially if you're trying to get, but it replicates your fight or flight response, so to speak. So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to sublimate the energy into something healthy. And for me, I would practice anything in my martial arts.
Yeah.
Go do the forms, go do the bag. All those things help me keep my mind more focused. And a lot of times what men will say, well, I don't have the time. That's
not.
But women will say that too.
Yeah. I mean, you're a physician. How often do you work out?
No, at least 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And and I meditate.
Yeah.
I meditate as well.
I know.
So finding the time is important for your self-care. So what else is important? And to me, the thought of losing my family was a big motivator. So that's another thing. You've got to find something that motivates you, but it's not a long-term solution, but it is to get you started in the process.
Yeah.
The long-term solution should be just being healthy.
Well, and really, for me, being on the partner side, my children, that was a short term. I wanted us to have a happy family. So that was my focus. Now I'm realizing it goes deeper than that. But so if that's the carrot you need to dangle in front of yourself, then do it. I know John Gottman is well known within these circles of marriage and coupleship. And what's the statistic he's got on how quickly these stay?
They've done the most research.
He's done the most research, like decades and decades, like 50 years. I don't know. He's
a lot.
Done a lot, like followed the same couples. And so he's gotten to where he can predict within
3 minutes.
3 minutes whether a couple is going to last.
To about an 80% or 90% accuracy.
Yeah, just watching them interact, and that's all he has to do.
Yeah.
But what is his famous topic that he uses?
You mean the Four Horsemen?
Yes, the Four Horsemen. And what are the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse that he talks about?
So these are the 4 features that they look for that can predict with a high degree of accuracy. And I don't remember the numbers right now, but with a high degree of accuracy, whether a couple would last.
Mm-hmm.
And even if one member of the relationship handles it well, they may have a better chance of surviving than if neither of them. And one is, and I don't remember the exact order, but contempt is one of them.
Mm-hmm. And give me an example of contempt.
So contempt refers to...
Because often the partner doesn't see their partner as contemptuous.
Yeah.
So give me some examples of...
So the common feature or the facial expression of contempt is rolling the eyes.
Like
exactly.
Like yeah.
Yes. So
or
rolling the eyes.
Curling the lip.
Yes. It's disgust.
Yeah.
It's a manifestation or a reflection of disgust.
Yeah.
So you're disgusted with the other partner and you're devaluing the other partner.
Mm-hmm.
And when they see that that's a big predictor. In fact, I think that's the strongest predictor.
And so contempt. Some verbal examples might be what?
Well, essentially devaluing the other person's reality.
You're an idiot or you're...
Yes, it's more like you're worthless.
Yeah.
Any message that says you're worthless, you're
Mm-hmm.
useless,
mm-hmm.
and you're not good enough
mm-hmm.
for me, those are the kind of messages.
Like evaluating their body, their appearance.
You disgust simple things like you disgust me.
Yeah.
It's not too complicated in
or
this
intelligence.
situation. Mm-hmm. But sometimes those are, you're talking about the words, but sometimes the behavior,
mm-hmm.
like they're not there for you.
Yeah.
They're not valuing you.
Yeah.
And this actually, men, I think, do require a little bit more of that frequent reassurance that they're valued and
mm-hmm.
they're appreciated. I'm not saying women don't, but men need to hear it. They need to be reassured more.
And they're not going to verbalize it. I think we women, hey, how do I look? We ask. We're very vocal in general. Not all women, not all men, but many women are very vocal about what they need and what they want from their partner. But on the other hand, and I'm still learning about you.
Right, we're still learning about each other.
Yeah, and we've been married how many years?
More than 20.
Okay.
We're going on
25?
25. We're going on this year. 27, 20. I think we're going on 28. No, that's how long we've met. See, when you lose count of how long you've been married, that means...
It's been a long time.
Yeah. I sometimes confuse the date of when we met and when we got married.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're approaching 28 years this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's right.
Yeah, that's right, because we were married in 97.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, yeah. What were we talking about there?
So we're talking about contempt.
Yeah.
And behaviors that reflect contempt
in
a with couples can often be not wanting to be intimate.
Yeah. And so what are the other 3 horsemen?
So the other one is criticism.
Okay.
So being critical of your partner constantly. One thing is to be a sounding board and
mm-hmm.
approach your partner. I think you need to look at this. You're making a mistake. You may be making a mistake. You may be wrong about that. That's different than telling
mm-hmm.
them you're stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's stupid. What you're doing is stupid.
You're old and ugly.
I had one couple where the girl, they were already married, and the girl kept saying, he wants to wear these ankle socks. They just look stupid. And I said, okay, no. He was wearing high socks and she wanted him to wear ankle socks. And she was trying to ask me, how do I get him to not wear those tall socks with shorts?
Uh-huh.
No, first of all, you can't. You might want to express that you would prefer, that you would like the ankle socks better.
Mm-hmm.
But don't tell them they're stupid.
Yeah.
Don't Well, what did she do? She went and told them that we're stupid, and then they got a big fight.
Oh.
And so even so, she just couldn't help herself.
Mm-hmm.
And in those situations, that's the kind of criticism that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's
Name
not
calling.
helpful. Name calling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Even a minor, I mean, you'd think the socks would not be a big deal, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those little things add up
It's
and constant damage to the relationship.
it's like taking what is the analogy where you instead of taking a big sledgehammer, you're just taking a small little hammer and tapping, or no, I think it's the water dripping over time, eventually over time, and it may take decades or hundreds of years, but over time there's a hole where that
The water dripping on the sand.
and that's traumatic. That's not helpful to your relationship. What about sarcasm?
Yeah, so sarcasm is the other one. And the thing about sarcasm, I don't know that that's exactly one of the Four Horsemen, but it is a big issue.
Or it's more contempt.
It's
Yeah,
contempt.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so sarcasm is very destructive to a relationship.
Mhm.
And what it does, it uses humor to lower someone's defenses
Mhm.
and then sends the criticism through
Mhm.
or the insult, whatever you want to call it, and it gets there and it hits harder than otherwise. So sark means flesh in Greek, and asm means tear apart. So you're tearing apart the flesh. And so imagine that's how bad that is.
Mhm.
So using sarcasm in a relationship, we come from dysfunctional families. We use sarcasm a lot, and we
Yeah.
thought it was funny,
Yeah.
but then we realized, okay, this is not helpful. We need
Mhm.
to stop this.
Yeah.
And okay, then we had to call each other out on it too.
Mm.
So anyway, so that is sarcasm. The other one is, gosh, defensiveness.
Defensiveness.
Yeah,
Okay, so give me in it because everybody said I'm not defensive.
that's defensive.
Yeah,
When you're saying I'm not defensive, that's
that's
being defensive.
defensive.
So if somebody says you're being defensive, and
Mhm.
says, okay, I'm not sure how I'm being defensive. Can you explain or give me more information? That would be the proper response. But if you're saying I'm not defensive, that's being defensive.
Yeah.
So
And I've found that defensiveness is having to manage a business with many, many employees. And I had a knack for finding the ones that were better at owning their own crap than others. But even it takes a tremendous amount of maturity and self awareness to know when you're being defensive. So basically, anytime you're making an excuse, you're being defensive. If you're not rigorously, and there's even a book, I can't remember the topic, but it's about just rigorous ownership of your crap,
and that requires humility.
It does. Yeah.
So if you're not humble, you're being arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, you're not going to repair whatever
Yeah.
is going on with you.
Yeah.
So, and our default mode is to be defensive.
Yeah.
Because we're just protecting our ego, and we have to learn to not be on that mode. So we have to actually, in our interactions, we have to forgive each other when we
Yeah.
do that, as long as we're coming back to the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So often that'll happen is, I think one of the, and this is not exactly that, but one of the things that we noticed when we were in therapy is that I kept raising my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just put your hand on my arm, and then it was like, oh, okay, I need to calm down. And our therapist noticed that, and that's that relationship issue. That's the soulmate part,
Yeah.
where I'm getting out of my my what's the right term? Out of my I'm engaging in my humanity. I'm engaging in my dysfunction, and I have to get back into my spiritual peace, spiritual self.
I'm going to say it's took me many years to get to that point where I could just, because when you are angry or raising your voice, and I still get that, I feel fear, or I feel myself walling off and getting angry myself. So it took years to get to that point where I can and just put my hand.
And that's the other thing. I don't realize that I'm at that point. And So with your help, it just brings me back into balance, and that's part of what we're talking about, boundaries being balanced. And you're not telling me to shut up, that would be the contempt, right?
Yeah.
And the criticism.
Yeah.
Shut
Or
up, you're
walling
being.
off, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the next one. But the two horsemen there would be, if I'm raising my voice, I don't even realize I'm raising it, and you say, "Shut up, you're being an asshole."
Yeah.
Then okay, those are two horsemen right there.
Yeah.
You just need a couple more, and you're done.
Yeah.
And but instead, you just touch me. I realize that what you're trying to tell me. I just
Yeah.
bring myself back
I
down
think
to a
I said
balanced state.
something to the effect like, honey, you're getting loud. And were you feeling angry at that?
No.
Okay. But
You mean that one time?
yeah.
I think I was just trying to make an argument,
Yeah.
and I get all revved up,
Yeah.
which men do a lot.
Hmm.
Men tend to get all revved up in
Hmm.
situations like that, and I was doing that. I was trying to make my point,
Yeah.
and because the harder I hit the
You're not getting
table,
it.
the more correct I am, the harder I
Yes.
hit the table, right?
Yeah.
So, but you touched me, then I went back into my center.
Yeah.
And in martial arts, we say that you're grounded, you're trying to stay focused.
And
You
you're
don't want to
centered.
get the rage to get the best of you. And that's something we learn in martial arts, right?
Hmm.
And then I like that point is I'm revving up, ready to fight. And then you're telling me, no, you don't need to fight. You're okay. And then, oh, that was unnecessary. And I calm down. So you pointed out to the other one, which is stonewalling.
Hmm.
Stonewalling is when the other one exits the
Yeah.
discussion, exits the relationship pretty much. I'm not talking, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And leave.
That's the the partner that goes off drinking.
And that's a good point. Let's make the distinction between the partner who's setting a boundary and leaving
Hmm. Versus
and walling off.
yeah.
In a way, it is stonewalling, but stonewalling refers to a very dysfunctional reaction.
Yeah.
In this case, the leaving just to set some distance.
And you're not going out to go drinking and get
No.
drunk. You're leaving to set a point that I'm done in
Or
this.
for safety.
Yeah, for safety, and I'm done with the toxic interaction. I'm ready to start something healthy. You can join me when you're ready.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And also protecting the children. If you have young children
Yeah.
and either one of the partners is out drunk on the couch, that's not okay.
Or yelling and screaming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yelling, screaming, raging.
Hmm.
That the children need to be protected from that. And that's a good time to pick them up and go to to somebody else's house.
Yeah.
Until the partner's ready to talk. But
Yeah.
stonewalling refers, I'm done with you.
Mhm.
I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
Go away.
Yeah.
And that is the fourth horseman. So we went over them.
And it's okay to be angry and say, I need some space. But in saying that, then you're also letting the partner know, I'm coming back. I just need X amount of time. I need an hour, or I need a day or a week, or hopefully it's not more than a week. You really need some intervention at that point.
Going back to the practical aspect, because this is a lot of these couples that the separation that we're talking about, therapeutic separation.
Mm-hmm.
Just from a practical purpose, you're not leaving the relationship. You're not asking for a divorce. You're just getting some space.
And we're huge advocates of the family and the sanctity of marriage. So we're not advocating for separating. We're
We're not
advocating
for divorce.
Yeah, we're not advocating for divorce. We're advocating for a therapeutic intervention, basically, is what it is. Yeah.
Right. So when you go, okay, I'm going to go to my mother's house and I'll call you on Monday.
Yeah.
Right. And then we'll check in and see if you want to talk or see what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
it
it's a
can
period
just
to come back to the relationship.
So it can just be a check-in then.
It can be a check-in.
If he's still, I'm partying with my friends. Then,
nobody's going to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to party with my friends. I'm going to go out and drink all I want.
Mm-hmm.
Or in a woman's case, I'm going to keep going to the club with my girlfriends.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's, well, then need a little bit more time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the point is.
Mm-hmm.
It might be helpful for the partner that's trying to get better is to state, I'm going to meet with a therapist. Would you like to join us?
Yeah.
Okay, you're welcome to join us.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, a lot of men are not open to that. And if they're not open to that, it's not going to work. Because that, as I said, across disciplines, the major, the most important predictor of whether or not the therapy is going to work is willingness to participate.
Yeah. I mean, he may not be willing in the beginning, but I've seen situations where, where the partner was in therapy for years and going to 12 steps for years. And eventually the partner was like, okay, you know what? I guess I'm going to join you. But the good thing about that relationship is he was willing to stay. So,
Okay, but that's another good point.
yeah.
That raises another issue, is that when one partner keeps working on themselves,
Yeah.
then the other partner starts to take notice and they start to emulate the healthy behavior.
Yeah.
And that is actually very spiritual. So let's
Yeah.
say I'm being an idiot
Mm-hmm.
and I keep doing things that I shouldn't be doing. Let's say drinking. I don't drink, but let's throw that out there. That I'm drinking, I'm going out getting drunk. And you keep going to your meetings, you keep meeting with your therapist. And I noticed that,
And you're making fun of me at first, of course.
yes, and I'm not going to therapy and I'm
yeah.
not doing this. It's not for me.
Yeah, and getting angry that I'm using it with my children. And
So then I start noticing that you avoid when I'm misbehaving, when I'm drinking. You're not reacting to my misbehavior. You're just calm and you're going to your exercise, and all of a sudden you start looking really hot. And I'm just got my beer belly over here. Okay.
and you don't necessarily have to look really hot. Some of us are past that age. But
Yes, but you get my point.
Mhm.
So then, okay, well, maybe there's something to this. And I'm not necessarily going to go back, but then I start going to the gym. I quit drinking.
Mhm.
And then we start spending more time together.
Mhm.
And we've seen that happen.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen.
And he may still make fun of the. I've got
to
people
some extent.
Yeah, that make fun of the. I've got people in my life that make fun of my therapy and so forth, but somehow they're miraculously responding to my boundaries.
Exactly. And we've seen that. Okay, you're talking about extended families.
Yeah.
That start responding to your being healthier.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, is people around you start to get healthier. And we saw that with several of our relatives and to some extent friends, but that's a different animal. And that's the spiritual aspect of it, right? Because you get healthier and then it just kind of starts rubbing off on me, and then I start getting healthier, and then our children start getting
and their friends get healthier. And
friends is a little,
I've
but you're right.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, you're
Yeah.
right. We did witness that with friends as well. So anyway, so the point being is that's the spiritual aspect of it. And going back to the lock and key, so all of a sudden one partner starts to change, one partner starts to get healthier, and the other partner's just not there. And then gradually, like, okay, this is no longer working. So they start to change gradually on their own. Even though you're doing most of the work, this person's following.
Yeah.
And eventually,
And they don't realize it.
they don't realize that eventually they both get healthy or healthier.
Yeah.
And now you have a spiritual partnership.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's how this works. And you're looks like you're getting emotional.
No, I mean, it takes longer in that kind of situation, but it also, you may have these lofty ideas of what you want it to be, and it may never be there, but it will certainly be better than what it was.
And remember what I said about the definition of love, that is the act of promoting one's spiritual growth. And that is exactly what's happening when this partner's focusing on themselves and this other partner starts to grow. That is love.
Yeah.
That is love. You don't have to fix them. You can't fix them. If anything, if you try to fix them, they're going to respond this way again, right? That the point is that if they're growing, then that's love. At least by that definition.
And I've seen, it's funny, but in my early years of codependency and recovery, I was a fixer. I liked fixing people. And so I would give out advice and pass out books.
I
And
remember the time I got the book, The Problem of Pain
yeah,
by C.S. Lewis, and you read it, and then you bought a copy for like
yeah.
15 different people.
I know. Oh, yeah. And that's how my mind even worked. As I'm reading, I'm thinking, so and so needs to read this, so and so needs to read that. And I'm thinking of all the people I need to give this book to, but without focusing on myself, interestingly enough, that's kind of how it works, right? If I can focus on you and all your problems, then I don't need to focus on mine. But over the years, I had to learn and hold myself accountable. That's what 12 steps is for. I held myself accountable every time I tried to fix somebody. That was my drug of choice, basically.
Mm.
And in doing that, it was really interesting. The people that I needled and that, it turned them further away. But then when I let off, it's kind of like they're like, where'd she go? And then people started coming to me and what's that book or who's that therapist? I can't tell you how many people I've referred to our therapist. But before it was like, hell no, I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, but it really makes an enormous difference when you stop trying to focus on everybody else and focus on you.
That's our show for today, and we could be going on for several more hours. So we'll have more fodder for discussion in other episodes. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you. And don't forget to
Share with all those boundaryless people you know out there, and subscribe to our podcast.
And Trinity, say goodbye, Trinity. She falls asleep. I don't know why she falls asleep during the episodes, but
yes,
after the episode, she'll get all spunky.
All right. Well, thank you. Keep working on your boundaries, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us today at Boundaries and Beyond. We would love for you to like and share with all those boundaryless friends and family members out there, as well as subscribe to our podcast. Also, please join us on Instagram at Boundaries Beyond Podcast. See you then.
See you then.